Okay. I just heard a woman refer to a man's penis as a healing wand. And I need to know what in the Harry Potter sex edition is going on here. I've never in my life heard of a man's penis referred to as a healing wand. But then I thought about it and I was like, like, when you're with the right man, I actually feel like that's pretty accurate. I feel like a man's penis can definitely be a healing wand, but I also feel like it can be not that. I need to ask. I need to be like, what is the wait, hang on, I'm gonna pull something up. What is the opposite of a penis being referred to as a healing wand? I just want to know what is going to be generated here. No, I said the opposite. Now we have, oh God, sacred chalice. And not the grail of activation. I can't. Oh my God. Okay, you know what? I'm putting this away. Okay, but wait, well, I do want to talk about this. Okay. Someone recently asked me what is my favorite chapter in my book, and I do have several that are just like kind of all in the same line for me, but pleasure is one of my all-time favorite chapters inside of Rich Bitch Money Goals, which by the way, we have 600 plus people registered for the July 7th live round of Rich Bitch Money Goals, where I go through my book every day for 25 days and I read this live and I deepen things for you. So I'm really, really excited about that. This is the most people we've ever had in. But I want to pull up this pleasure chapter here because actually, I think this is perfect. So here's something I say inside of my book. There is a reason the clitoris, unlike any other organ, exists solely for pleasure, with 8,000 nerve endings designed for bliss. Ancient traditions have long recognized female pleasure as a gateway to cosmic creation. So I'm not going to get into all of that, what's in my book, but I go into my own story about pleasure. And I talk about the previous marriage that I was in, and pleasure was really lacking. And so, one of the things that I found was like, I was making a lot of money in my business, doing very well. But where I wasn't thriving was in the bedroom. And I do believe that a woman's like her ability to create at the highest level cannot be achieved if her sexual desires are not being not only fulfilled but like awakened on an entirely new level, unleashed on an entirely new fucking level. So as weird as it was to say it, to hear this woman say that a man's penis is like a healing wand, I can't, like, I just can't. All I can think of is like a wizard hat. I can't get around, I can't get down with like that term. But I do think that when you are with the right man, the ability to be penetrated on a soul level, an energetic level, is very much possible with the healing wand. I can't even have this conversation. I'm just saying, like, I have found that, with the partnership I've been in, the sex has been so incredible, and it has really had me be more creative in my life, in my business. It's really so like inside of the rich bitch community, we have a saying, and it's giving DPE, which stands for it's giving dry pussy energy, which is something nobody wants. And I will actually say this now, if the person I'm dating does anything that's like literally turning me off, I'll be like, okay, that gives me DPE. We need to not ever do that again, or we need to not say that again. And then I'll give him all, right? Because I want him to win. Okay. So, like, I will set him up for success. But I do feel like you can make money. There's literally in an world of infinite potentials, like there are infinite timelines running. You could make money and be extremely wealthy in terms of your access to cash and finances and your ability to pay for things. You could be completely financially free, and then you could be completely broke in the bedroom, and you could be completely void of pleasure. So there's a timeline that exists for that. And I'm sharing that because this is one of the things that I teach, where it's like you can make money anyway. You could steal, you could lie, you could cheat, you could manipulate, you could do things from alignment, from pure joy, from pleasure, from desire, from confidence. Like there's so many different ways that you can experience wealth and create money. And the whole thing that we stand for inside of the Rich Bitch community is the definition of wealth, that you're living a wealthy life, which would state in my community that wealth is defined by you as an experience of self, and you're clear on the experience that you want to have for yourself, for your life, which is why you would take the C and bitch and consciously create that for yourself. And so it's not that any experience is actually bad, right? You could be with a man and not have any sex, and there's nothing that's not bad. And you could have dry pussy energy. It's not that it's bad or that it's wrong. It's just that pretty much 100% of the time, when somebody's just honest, it's not what they ultimately want. Like nobody's sitting there going, you know what? I want to be in a sexless marriage. Nobody's doing that. No one's doing that. Nobody's going, you know what? I want to have sex that doesn't feel good. I want to have sex and not have an orgasm. And I think women have really given up on their pleasure and their access to pleasure. I have an orgasm now when I have sex, and I can't say that I always did. And I talk about that in the book. I have faked a lot of orgasms throughout my life, and I know a lot of women that have done the same thing. In fact, I don't actually know anybody that at some point in time hasn't faked an orgasm. Not men. I'm speaking like specifically to women, although I do know some men that have done that. Um, but what I have found, and I also think it's really helpful if you don't know what your erotic blueprints are. Personally, I found that to be really, really helpful. So naturally, I'm an energetic. Go figure. If you know me, you're like, you didn't need to tell us that. If you don't know what the erotic blueprints are, I highly recommend that you go figure that out for yourself. Just Google it. There's a free version and there's like a $17 version. You don't need the $17 version. But at some point in time, you might want to actually pay to do that one. But it for everybody that has done this, I've had clients do this, it literally lands for them in a way that if they take this on and they apply it and they work with their partner, their sex completely changes. I mean, there's other factors that go into that too, but so for me, I'm an energetic. That's like my primary. And then the second to that is kink, which also makes sense because I definitely am very kinky in the bedroom. But I have found that the right man has awakened even more of that. So he calls me a freak all the time. And I'm like, you're not wrong. Like he's saying it as a compliment. Okay. We have really, really good sex, really wild sex, and it's just amazing. And I love it. And as a woman that was once in relationships where that was not prioritized, I'm very clear that there is a difference between sex and like accessing pleasure on an entirely new fucking playing field. And so I want to state for the woman that's like, maybe you even feel shame around pleasure. I think, one of the most kind of had so many profound things happen at my retreats, but there was a woman who came to one of my retreats and then she was celebrating at dinner. And this was the other thing I love. Like, these are some of the conversations that we have at my retreats. So I don't know, like if you're stuffy, if you feel there's such thing as TMI, I definitely would not be the right person for you to be working with or definitely experiencing live in person, because we do some shit. Like, but anyway, this client, I'm going to tell you a story after this, but this client, she basically was able to self pleasure during the retreat and have an orgasm for the first time in like over 2 years or something wild. And there had to have been something that was unlocked for her to be able to access that. And I don't think there's enough women talking about and normalizing self pleasure and normalizing the arousal that women get to experience during sex. And if you're not tapping into that, I mean, then we sure as hell can't be calling anybody that you're hooking up with and referring to their penis as a healing wand. Cause girl, if it ain't giving you pleasure, it ain't healing you. Okay. He's like, we gotta talk. But God, I'll never forget too at one of my retreats. So we were doing a Temazcal ceremony. I don't know how this just got brought into this conversation, but we were doing a Temazcal ceremony. If you don't know what that is, it's like this ancient Mayan tradition. This was in Mexico. And you basically sit in this like, think of it like a sweat box, okay? Except it's very tiny. It's dark in there. They cover the door and there's this, it's just steam. They just keep putting, it's very, very fucking hot. And you're in there for like 2 hours. And we pretty we did at the last retreat. The lady was like, everyone has to get naked or like just be in their underwear. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't prepare them for this. And she's like, well, we did because she knew my brand was Liberate Her. She's like, this is the first time we're doing this. It's the Liberate Her edition. I'm like, okay, well, listen, there were buttholes in my face. We had to literally get in, what is that position? You're kneeling, you're like on your knees and then you lean forward as if you're kissing the ground to give thanks. And one by one, we all had to do that. So I saw all of my clients that weekend. Okay. I saw everything. They saw everything, but it's actually been on my heart to do something for women, to create a retreat that's very different outside of let's have money conversations and make more money. Like I love that, but that's also like creating more money in your life is a byproduct of this work. So I've been having this deep desire to do a retreat for women. It would be very, 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 very special. I want it to be very intimate and I want it to have to do with our bodies and really accessing a new level of pleasure within our bodies, having women heal the shame that they've been carrying, the judgment they've been carrying, and really allowing them to tap into their inner confidence. Confidence is something that outside of money and outside of how do I heal and things like that, how do I overcome? Confidence is definitely a buzzword when it comes to people asking me, how can I create more confidence? So this is something I'm actually really excited to play with more. And I remember my first Tulum retreat was going to be called Topless in Tulum. And I advertised it that way. And too many women were scared. But what I actually found, so I changed the name of it, sold that out. But what I naturally found was that, we were kind of just doing that anyway. I think I've been topless at every retreat I've ever done at some point in time. So, it's just like that self-expression is just a natural extension of one of my codes and we experience it anyway. But I do want a very specific retreat that really allows for a woman to just access pleasure and turn that on. Because I'm telling you, when your pleasure is turned the fuck on, watch what happens to your business. Watch what happens to your confidence. Watch what happens to your bank account, the money coming in. Everything fucking changes when a woman is deeply rooted and intentional about receiving her pleasure and unlocking her pleasure. This podcast was brought to you by my international best-selling book, Rich Bitch Money Goals, Becoming the Energetic Match to Wealth, which is available at over 39,000 retailers across the nation. So make sure you pick up your copy today. You can find it in places like Amazon, Target, Indigo, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, and more.